Hello everyone, it's Joe here from Snake Draft FPL, and today I am bringing you a review of the Draft Twitter League that was held last night on draftfantasyfootball.co.uk. But before we get stuck into that, I've just got a few announcements I need to make. First of all, there are a few spots left in a very, very competitive set of FPL draft leagues. I'm going to leave a link down below in the description to a Discord channel that you can ask some questions and get involved. There's a few spots left in a few different tiers of leagues, but that is all good fun. Also, we are recording the first episode of this year's Snake Draft FPL League podcast tonight. That will be live later on tonight on Spotify, so if you don't follow us on Spotify, get on there at Snake Draft FPL. We also are on the standard other podcast platforms, Apple Pods, Google Pods. And finally, I am going to be live streaming on YouTube tomorrow night, about 10 p.m. UK time. That's Friday night. I'm going to be live streaming a draft on official FPL. I'm going to just kind of talk through my picks, my strategy, kind of go through everything that's going through my head as we draft. So that should be good fun. Make sure you're around for that. Right, let's get stuck into today's video then. Okay then, so this is the full draft board. So you can have a look at that on the screen now. I'm not going to go through the whole board because that will take ages, but I'm just going to go through the first couple of rounds and then kind of talk about my team and how I feel it went. So first round, first pick, Graz gets the first pick. Salah, of course, I think that's a no-brainer. Not going to talk about it too much. Next up, we had Draft Punk and Everywhere We Go Pod. They picked Son and Kane respectively. I think that's absolutely just bang average. Yeah, exactly what you'd expect. Next up, Draft Answers picked Jesus. This caused a little bit of a stir actually. A lot of people, I don't know if it's just me. I've never played in a league with Draft Answers before. A lot of people on Twitter will know who he is. He basically runs an account dedicated to like Twitter polls and stuff, and because he always runs polls, I assumed that, I don't know why, but I assumed his strategy would be picking like the vanilla picks, like the ones that would always win those polls. You can kind of tell who's going to win in those polls a lot of the time. It's, the more boring, less risky pick. And that was like the kind of opposite of his strategy, it seemed, which I think is great. So he picked Jesus fourth, which a lot of people were surprised, but I don't think it's that bad. I think I had him at 7 or 8 in my list, so it's not crazy. Next up went Haaland, then De Bruyne, then Trent, and then Sterling. And that then came to me. I got 9th pick, and they were my top 8 that had gone. So nothing unsurprising. Okay, the order might have been a bit surprising, but my top 8 picks went in the first 8. So I was then left with the next pick in my rankings was Bruno. So I feel like in the first round you just you've already done the work, you put the work in, you've made your rankings, you've got to stick with them. So I went for Bruno, even though there obviously is some risk attached with the Ronaldo, does he stay or does he go? But there we are. Dare to Draft was 10th. He was on auto pick. I would guess that he probably didn't expect to get both Cancelo and Robertson in 10 and 11. As he was on auto pick, he probably would have expected to maybe get one of them in the second round. But the way it's gone, it makes sense. Cancelo and Robertson, I had both of them in the top 15. So yeah, nothing too surprising there. Next up, it came back round to me, and this was probably the easiest pick for me of the whole draft. Luis Diaz was free. I think I had him at 11 maybe, or 10. And I'm really high on him, and he kind of complements Bruno well, I think, because I think Luis Diaz is pretty low risk. So that was an easy pick for me. Then we went over to Dave, Snake Draft Dave. I know, I mean, he's from my home league. I know who he likes well. I know he loves Foden. So I personally wasn't surprised at all when he picked Foden. I think some people were. But I don't think that's too far out of kilter. I think I had him about 14 or so in my rankings, so not too far off. Next up, Darwin was picked. Again, with the Jota injury, it looks even more secure at the start of the season, so no qualms with that. VVD next. I think that's maybe a touch early for VVD, in my opinion. I mean, I guess it complements the De Bruyne pick quite well. I think if it was me, I probably would have gone for a forward in that scenario. I just think that, I don't know, Trent, Cancelo and Robertson, I completely understand taking right at the start. But any defenders beyond that don't really do it for me, to be honest. Draft SC then took Vardy. You could argue that's quite interesting because he's already got Haaland, so 2 forwards off the bat when there were some pretty good mids left on the table. But again, pretty steady pick. I'm not going to argue too much with that. Draft Answers then goes for Grealish. I think he could have got Grealish in the 3rd round, actually. Now, when I look at the picks that went after him, so Reece James, Sancho, Chilwell, Maddison, Saka, Mahrez, I'm not convinced any of those people would have picked Grealish in that spot. So I think Answers probably could have got Grealish with his next pick and then got maybe a Reece James, a Chilwell, Maddison, Saka, Mount. We'll get onto him shortly. But again, I don't hate it. I think that might be a touch early. Everywhere we go then picks Reece James. Fair enough. Can't argue with that. Sancho next. I don't mind that. I think it's earlier than I would have gone for him, but I can understand why you'd think if I don't pick him now, he may go. So I don't hate it. Graz then picks Chilwell and Maddison. He did say on his stream actually that he would have picked Mount here if he'd realised he was still available, but he thought he'd gone, which is quite funny. I do find the draft. This is the first time I've used Draft Fantasy online draft. We do our draft offline, and I did find it really difficult, especially as I didn't have my laptop, so I just had the draft screen on the iPad, and then I was like flicking between the chat and my list on my phone, and it did get really confusing about who I'd picked from my rankings and who hadn't gone and stuff. So it was tricky to keep abreast of the picks that had gone and who hadn't gone. So I don't blame him too much. Chilwell's a good pick. Maddison obviously is a decent pick. Saka, Mahrez, yep, standard, good picks. Rashford, I think's perfectly reasonable there in that spot. Bowen next. I think I was quite surprised Bowen went after the likes of Grealish, Rashford, maybe even Sancho, I'd argue. He was so steady last season. I don't know, maybe people think he's going to regress. I do think he will regress, but maybe not quite that much. Next up, Draft Academy picked Ronaldo. I was really pleased he picked Ronaldo because I didn't want him to be available when he got to me, really, because there's no way I was going to draft Ronaldo already having Bruno in my team. So I was quite pleased when he went. And it was around this stage where I was like, Havertz and Mount are both available, and I was kind of hoping for Havertz because I've already got 2 mids at this point, so I'm trying to think like long term. Okay, I'm definitely going to pick one of these two if they're free because I think they're by far and away the best picks available. So which one would I rather have in this team? Okay, I rank Mount higher, but for this team I think Havertz is probably the better pick. Then Zaha goes, so now I'm thinking, okay, I'm definitely getting one of the two of them. That's ideal. Dave then goes for Havertz. He's also got 2 mids already, so I'm guessing he's thinking along the same lines as me. But that's fine by me because I'll pick up Mason Mount in the, I think that's the 29th pick. Yeah, 29, which is crazy to me. I think I had him ranked 12th maybe or 13th, so that's certainly interesting. Next up, Jota. I think that makes sense. You know, that seems about right to me. I think he would have gone a lot higher if he didn't have this kind of injury that's just appeared. So yeah, that's kind of the first 3 rounds covered. I'm not going to go through the whole draft, as I said. I'm just going to look through kind of my picks and my strategy for the rest of the draft. So we can see that, you know, after Mason Mount, it comes. I found this really difficult actually because Dare to Draft was on auto draft. So when it came around to me, I was making a pick and then it was instantly back on me, and we had only 60 seconds. And as I said, with the rankings on the website being, you know, wild, and my phone like flicking between group chats and the stream and everything. It was really, there was a lot going on when it got to my pick. So came back round to me. I thought, right, I definitely need a forward now. A lot of people, some people may have thought, you've got 3 mids and they might not have picked Mount because I already had 2 mids, but I think that is one of the situations where the value is so high that the position doesn't matter. When it gets to this next spot, there's no one that's available, I think, now that is such a good pick that I can disregard position. So I think, okay, what do I need? Well, some good defenders have gone, but the next tier of defenders that are left, I'm not too worried about, really. The likes of Diaz, Laporte, okay, they're nice to own. I'd like to have them, but I don't think they're that much better than the likes of Gabriel, Romero, etc., Matip, those kinds of players. So I'd rather get a good forward because the drop off there can be massive. And I was thinking, if everyone picks forwards here, by the time it gets around to me in the 5th round, I could be really looking at scraps. So I've gone for Ollie Watkins. He was next on my list. I think, it just made sense to me at that point. Pick a nailed forward and keep this going. So it comes back round. I'm then basically in exactly the same position I was before, and my choice here was Bamford, Martial, or a defender. And I was looking at the defenders, thinking the really attacking defenders have all gone. The likes of Perisic, obviously the big 3, and even Diaz, Laporte have gone. So they're the next tier. So in the end, I think, right, another forward probably makes the most sense here because, as I said, I don't think there's that much difference between a really good defender and like a pretty good defender. So go for Bamford. I like Bamford this season. The main reason I didn't go for Martial is because I already have the Bruno pick. If Ronaldo stays, Martial's minutes look dodgy. Bruno might also get worse, and that could really scupper my team for the whole year. So I'd rather spread the risk and go for Bamford there. Antonio and Martinelli go. And then it's back to me again. At this point, I was like, okay, now's the time to pick a defender. I've got 5 attackers, ready to go. So it's time to pick a defender for sure. And the next pick on my list was Romero, and I got kind of cooked in the live stream chat for this pick. People thought it was surprising, but I feel like he's Spurs' best defender, nailed on, good attacking threat from set pieces in a defence that I think is going to be top 3 easily this year. So for me, it seemed like an absolute no-brainer. But yeah, some people didn't like it, but that's draft, isn't it? So comes all the way back around to me again, and I decide another defender is probably the way to go here. So Ben White, really boring, no attacking threat. I wanted Gabriel, and that was who I had. But Mitch from Draft FC snapped him up, 4 picks before me. I was actually gutted because then I thought, right, okay, next is Koulibaly. Then he went 2 picks before me. I thought, oh, okay. So then I defaulted onto Ben White. Again, I don't love it. He doesn't have much attacking threat. He's not amazing on bonus, but at least he is nailed on in that Arsenal defence. Ericsson, Buendia go back to me. I've now got 2 defenders, and they're 2 defenders that start every week. Decent fixtures to start the season. I'm not too worried about getting many more defenders now. I'm thinking like I can string this out a bit. So I look at my mids and my forwards and think, who's next? I think the next mid on my list was Bruno Guimaraes maybe, or Lingard, something like that. And I look at my forwards and it's Solanke, and I just think, he's on pens, he's nailed on. He's got to be the one I go for. So I've now got 3 forwards, and I'm done with forwards, which is great because the forwards get slim pickings as you go on. So I'm pretty chuffed with the front line. So yeah, then we come back round, and the rest of the picks, I think picks 9 onwards are not that important. I think pick 1 and 2 are obviously very important. I think the most important bit of the whole draft is this 3 to sort of 8 range. You're filling out your team, and you're that middle pack really decides how strong your team is because everyone's got a good pick. First pick, all of them are good. No one takes Cucurella in the first round, but if you all you need is 2 okay picks and you're off and running. That 3 to 8 really defines your team, I think, and I was pretty happy at that point. So I wouldn't say I switched off at this point, but it's so hard to keep track of who had gone, who had stayed. But I'll tell you now, half of these have already gone. The waivers, the free agents are open from the start of the season on DFF, so I know that if I don't make the perfect pick, I can swap them out. For instance, Bazanu's gone, Aguerd's gone, he's injured, Kilman's gone. So yeah, that's kind of how the draft went, really. I'll just show you a quick image of my current team. Okay, so here is my team as of game week 1. This is how it's going to look as it stands right now, and I'm happy with this, to be honest. I think this is nice. So I've got Martinez in goal. We've got one flex position in this league, which is slightly different to official FPL, so you can deviate from the standard positions by one. So I've dropped my secondary keeper for another midfielder. So it's Martinez in goal, Ben White and Romero. I'm happy with those two. I picked up Botman off the freeze for Kilman because I really like that Forest at home fixture in game week 1, and Newcastle's defence is pretty good. Then I've got the big three in midfield, Mount, Bruno and Diaz. I'm absolutely chuffed with that. I think that's great midfield three. I picked up Dewsbury Hall off the freeze just because I prefer the fixture to Anthony Gordon, who I did have in there originally, so he's dropped to the bench. And then I've got those three forwards, Bamford, Watkins and Solanke. They will be starting for me every single week this season. I suspect all three will be on pens. They can get goals any time. Obviously, I don't think Bournemouth are going to be great. I don't think Leeds are going to be great, but I think those two will be absolutely paramount to how they got on this season. So that's the team I've ended up with. I'm pretty happy. We'll see how it goes. There's not been too much trade negotiation yet, but I think that's going to be coming soon. So thank you for watching this video. Please like if you enjoyed. Remember to join the live stream tomorrow night. Remember to sub for the podcast on Spotify or Apple or Google, wherever you get your pods. Like the video, subscribe, and we will see you next time.